Happy Friday, Junior, everybody. Welcome to AI Skills Fest. It's really great to see the turnout, even with the World Cup going on. So let's go back to basics today in your job search, from ramping up your resume to building a personal brand that stands out to recruiters and hiring managers. We're going to have a lot of time for Q&A at the end, so make sure you start dropping your questions in the chat as soon as you have them so that we can block them together. So before we get started, I'm Karen Ngo, and my personal philosophy is growing 1% every day through finding inspiration to share with the world. This is a snapshot from my career walking deck, and let's just say that I've been very passionate about career development ever since I was a student, because I was the first in my family to go to university, and I started at zero, like many of you who are joining me today. 500 career conversations later, and I'm still learning something new all the time. And whether you're a student that's just starting out or a working professional with years of experience under your belt, what I'm going to talk about today will stay relevant as you continue to advance in your career. So let's dive in to building experiences, which for me started when I was in middle school. I actually did a lot of volunteering with my local community and did summer camps, which gave me a lot of exposure to what it was like to report to a supervisor, and it helped me build my teamwork and communication skills. As a volunteer, you often get to job shadow other people in the organization, and you get to see what parts of their day look like. This actually gives you a very good idea of whether you'd actually enjoy doing this full time. So if you are unemployed right now, or you're looking for your next role, or you're looking to make a career transition, I highly recommend looking for a volunteer position first and finding ways to immerse yourself in that particular ecosystem of the company that you're trying to join, because then you get exposure, you get to meet different stakeholders, and from there you get really good experience building awareness of what's going on. And also, it's very rewarding to give back to your community when you are volunteering. So there's never a shortage of opportunity out there when it comes to volunteering. So if you aren't doing something right now, that is a really great way to start building experience and gaining networks. Next, if you want to join clubs, competitions, and extracurricular activities, the best time to do it is when you're in school, because I feel like there's so many different opportunities to do that when you are in your first, second, even third and fourth year. But this is the best way to start driving results that you can then put on your resume. For example, when I was in university, I joined a bunch of student clubs in my first year just to see which ones I liked the most. And then as I advanced through each year, I started competing for the leadership positions. And so eventually I became the president of 2 different teams, and I got to oversee a $200,000 budget all before I graduated. And this was really good exposure for me into how do you manage a budget? How do you lead a team? How do you navigate team politics? And all these different things that usually you'd have to wait until you join the corporate workplace to get exposure to. But while you're in school, it's a really good playground for you to actually go and experience what it's like to work with all these different dynamics and all these different elements. And from there, getting all exposure through these extracurriculars actually gave me really great bullet points to add to my resume. And so when it was time for me to apply for internships, that's actually what made my resume stand out. And I still remember when it was my first day on my internship, and I went to my hiring manager and I was like, what made you decide to hire me for this job? And he was like, honestly, you just had a really great resume. And so it does matter, but how you get the experiences is through joining these different organizations and case competitions that can also be good exposure into building communication skills, public speaking skills, and then those are things that you'd add to your resume as well. Now, if you're not sure which extracurriculars to join just yet, go and network at the conferences and meetups that your university offers. And trust me, there's so many different opportunities out there. You're probably just not aware of the breadth. And so take advantage of career services, all the student clubs, all the different alumni offices. There's many different things where you can tap into it and check out their free events or other networking opportunities. And just from meeting alumni or industry professionals, you'll actually get a really good chance to find mentors. And that's actually how I found a lot of my mentors who are willing to give me practical advice about how to join their company or how to start being a part of their industry. And actually, the best part of going to these networking events is that you're interfacing with professionals who actually want to talk to you, right? This means they're not going to be ghosting you because they actually want to be there. They want to give it forward or pay it forward. And so this is a really good opportunity to reach out and say, hey, I'd love to pick your brain and I'd love to learn more about your career path. How did you make this pivot, or how did you go from this degree to this profession? And it's a really great playground, again, for you to go and meet different people. And if you make a strong enough impression, you may even land yourself a job on their team because they're going to make a referral for you. And so this is where the power of the network can really help you gain those different experiences and exposures to land your first internship or your first role. And so while I learned this final tip after I graduated, I actually wish I knew how to create a career walking deck earlier on so that I would have been less awkward in coffee chats and have a better way to introduce myself and make a strong impression with other people. Because when I was in university, I was actually very nervous all the time. I was terrified of talking to professionals or working adults. And it was just very nerve-wracking to reach out and all that kind of stuff. And so I believe that the career walking deck is quite a game changer in it, especially if you're introverted or you're not really experienced with networking, because it gives you a way to break the ice, introduce yourself in a more structured but visually compelling manner, and it engages the other person. And so you can think of the career walking deck as your visual elevator pitch that can help you answer common questions like tell me about yourself. But then if you go into an interview, you can answer other questions about why you're the best fit for a role and why your experiences make you the best candidate. And it's actually what helped me land my previous role at Microsoft. Even though I lacked the experience needed for the role, I prepared a career walking deck to emphasize all of my other transferable skills. And that convinced my hiring manager to take a bet on me because he said that I was the only candidate that prepared one. And so right now, it's a perfect time to create a career walking deck because not a lot of people know about it yet, or they haven't put in too much time and effort into going above and beyond. And so if you do want to stand out in this era of AI, now is the perfect time to start and try these different things so that people remember you and actually give you more opportunities and exposure to different things. And if you want to learn how to build your own career walking deck, you can check out my 3-part career cheat sheet series, which is actually already on the AI Skills Navigator. So all that is ready for you to go and get started after our LinkedIn Live today. So now we're going to spend some time talking about some timeless resume basics that I want you to keep in mind whenever you are refreshing your resume. First, I really recommend keeping it to one page. And this can vary depending on which part of the world you're in. But the best practice here that I really want you to remember is include the most relevant experience to the opportunity that you're applying for, right? This means being very clear and concise. You don't want bullets that start with responsible for XYZ. We want bullets that start with a strong action verb and highlight your results. So for example, when I was in university and I was talking about managing a $200,000 budget, those would be the kind of things I would highlight on a resume instead of interacted or supported other team members, right? Those are weaker bullet points. You want to emphasize what did you do to drive results. And even though we want to keep our resume to one page, we still need to use effective white space between your different sections, and you want to have proper margins on the page so that it still looks good, right? Don't clutter it up. Make sure you use a clean 1-column resume template because it's easier for your ATS to read from left to right. If you have a 2-column resume, it can get very complicated to read, and also it's an ineffective use of white space. And this is actually a mistake that I see very often. It's the lack of inconsistency. So from rescuing over 200 resumes around the world, I've seen many with formatting mistakes, like different fonts, different sizes, text spacing and alignments looking weird. And so one thing that you could do to tailor your resume to the company is actually use your company branding colors And that way it shows that you're aligned with their brand. So that's one of the things you could do to kind of stay consistent in your formatting. And then another thing is just double checking that your fonts look good, your spacing looks good, everything reads properly. One little hack you can use to check if your bullets make sense is actually read it out loud to yourself. And if it flows, then you know it's a good sentence. Otherwise, you probably need to tweak it because it's sounding a little bit awkward. And so for all these tips, you can easily use a tool like Copilot to help you catch and fix them before you download and submit your resume. So make sure that you take the extra step of going in and making sure that none of these are mistakes that you've left behind. Because once you submit it, it's basically you submitting an impression of yourself, right? Even if it doesn't make it through, or if it does, it's important for them to see that you're someone who really has a strong attention to detail and you're delivering the best quality asset. And so for those of you who maybe rely too much on outsourcing your resume to AI or other people, I really want to do a mini activity that tests your knowledge on what we talked about today about what a good resume looks like. So what I'm going to show you are some actual resumes that have been submitted to me in the past. And I want you to find out what are the mistakes that I just talked about. So here I'm going to give everybody a minute to spot 3 things that need to be fixed. And I want you to put it in the comments. And let's see if anybody can figure it out. All right, we've got 20 seconds left. Does anybody have any ideas? Please drop it in the comments. What are the 3 things that should be fixed on this resume? Ooh, okay, 2 columns. Haj, that's a good one that you called out. Okay, so for those of you who are guessing, there's the 3 things. The first one, bad use of white space, right? There's so much going on, but on the left side, there's so much white space. That is not a good use of bullets that you could be conveying value about your experience. Another thing is that blue area right there. It's not consistent with other capitalized words, right? Little things that need to be consistent in order to be professionally polished. And then also the 2 green sections, they could easily be consolidated. So these are little things that you can pay attention to as you're working on your own resume. Next up, here's 7 mistakes on this resume. Again, I'm going to give you 1 minute, and let's see if you can spot 7 mistakes. Please put them in the chat. Ooh, okay. Chelsea said bold. Erica said bold fonts. The job title is missing. 2 columns. These are good call outs. Thank you for paying attention. Srivdia said the font. All right. Everyone's picking some things up, which is good. 7 things. Can you spot all 7? We've got 20 seconds left. Sherry answered headers, spacing, and bullets. These are great. Okay, so we've got a bunch of inconsistencies here. So first, that red section, very repetitive. It doesn't show any of the value add that this person has. English is spelled wrong, right? So little typos here and there can be very easily fixed when you submit it through Copilot and ask it to double check grammar and spelling errors, right? Those are some of the things easy for you to do before you submit your resume. The 6 in 2006 is not bolded, super weird. And then if you look at the blue section, we've got, it doesn't emphasize any important outcomes or accomplishments. That's not what we want. It doesn't show your value. There is no consistency in the sentence structuring, and the spacing is inconsistent, right? So a bunch of little things that they actually add up, and it shows that you don't have a polished resume. And then that last green part there, it's an incomplete sentence, and it's a waste of a line on a resume. I always say that if you're going to write in that line, fill it up, right? One bullet, one line. But if you go into the second line, fill it up, but make sure it emphasizes your results, your skills, and your experiences. Okay, last one. 1 minute to figure out 3 mistakes. Can you do it? And I might just make this one 30 seconds because it is an easier one. All right, Douglas is saying the bullets are lacking. Yes, that's a good one. Paragraph margins, time frame. Okay, you guys are catching on. All right, I'll give this one 10 seconds. So I'll stop at the 30-second mark on the timer. Okay, it looks like you've got a lot of them. So no highlighting of accomplishments. That's a no-no. It's regurgitating your roles and responsibilities. Another no-no, because you want to show your value add. Anyone else can say the same thing. They can regurgitate the roles and responsibilities. But what results did you achieve? You really need to focus and question yourself on that, and then put those on your resume. And also there's some parts that are just not relevant to the job opportunity, right? So if you are volunteering, if you have special interests, those might be cool to include on your career walking deck, but not really necessary on your resume. And so again, tools like Copilot can be great at helping you with these things, but you also need to be aware of what a strong resume looks like, because that's going to be how you differentiate your resume from another job seeker's AI-generated resume. And in this era of AI, again, the career walking deck is what's going to help you win inside of the interview. So as promised, I wanted to leave a lot of time for Q&A. So before we get into that, please take 30 seconds to give me your feedback on today's lesson. Go to karenism.com/feedback, and this will help me improve for next time. There's a lot to cover, right? And so I have a bunch of free resources here on my LinkedIn, so please connect with me. And also check out my Substack, where I share a lot of resources and upcoming events. And then at the end of the month, I'll be hosting a full-day Career OS workshop on Maven, which teaches you the end-to-end system for getting hired. So feel free to check that out. And if you are a student, feel free to message me and I'll give you a special discount, because we love to pay it forward to our students. So with that, we can go into Q&A, and let's see what you got for me. So first one from Bhakti. Breaking into tech as a freshman feels tougher than ever. Any advice for aspiring developers? So I would say when it comes to breaking into any kind of technical role, whether you already have experience or not, really it comes down to getting exposure to the coding and joining a boot camp, joining hackathons, joining organizations like Girls Who Code, because that's actually where you get exposure to the networks. And actually some of the people that I've talked to who have made successful pivots from non-engineering into engineering did exactly that. They did certifications, they did a lot of projects on GitHub, they joined open source projects, and this is how they built their skill sets. With those skill sets, now they have something to showcase when it comes to an interview or when it comes to a case study. And so these are different things that you want to start building now. And you could also include them in your career walking deck so that when you are finished the interview, you can attach it and say, here's all the other things I have in my portfolio that you could consider me for. So that's one of the things I would consider. And also AI Skills Navigator is a really great place for you to actually put in your challenge, right? I'm transitioning from X to Y. I'm targeting this role. What are some of the courses I should be taking? And it'll actually curate a tailored learning playlist for you to get better there. Question number 2, if I've applied to a lot of jobs and haven't heard back, what should I fix first? Well, first, I would always advise do not do the spray and pray approach. It's a waste of time because everyone is doing that, right? The way you are going to land your next job is not through randomly submitting your application 1,000 times. It's going to be strategically targeting the right companies, the right roles, and the right people to talk to. So if I were you, I would have a very clear proposal in my career walking deck, like, here's my career journey, here's the role I want, and here's all the different things I've already prepared to get there. And when you go into a conversation prepared with all of those things, the other person is like, okay, this person is serious about this opportunity. Let me see how I can help them. And it's all about nurturing your networks, right? So whenever you have a coffee chat, don't just say a random generic thank you note afterwards. Try to recap your key takeaways and then follow up. If you had anything interesting that they gave advice on and you actually did it and it worked out or it didn't, follow up on it, right? This makes people more invested in you on your journey, and that's what's going to get them to help you even further along. So those are some of the things that you can think about when it comes to, not going for the spray and pray approach, but actually being more strategic. I actually have a LinkedIn page called Now Hiring, and I actually repost hiring posts from recruiters and hiring managers so that you as a job seeker can actually see, oh, this is the recruiter behind this job posting, or this is the hiring manager behind this job posting. And it gives you an opportunity to try reaching out to them on LinkedIn and creating that connection, because that'll actually give you a foot in the door versus blindly applying through the portal. Another thing I would say is don't click the easy apply in LinkedIn. You actually want to go directly to that company's job site and apply through their job portal. You don't want to do it through a third-party tool. Question number 3, does LinkedIn really matter if my resume is already strong? Yes. I've talked to so many people who have gotten their jobs because a recruiter reached out to them on LinkedIn. It wasn't because they submitted their resume. It was because they created visibility and a strong brand for themselves. And that's why the recruiter was able to find them and actually ask them to join an interview loop. So it is very important for you to have a lot of the core elements of your strong resume and put them on your LinkedIn profile, but you should also try to engage, right? Like, follow, and engage with the companies that you're interested in. Because on the LinkedIn recruiter side, when they are trying to find candidates, all these different engagements will actually boost your profile up on their page. And if you're not engaging at all, you may be lower down on the feed. But if you are liking the content, you're engaging with it, you show that you're open to work, all these little things are actually going to be signals for a recruiter. And that's very important for you to navigate this job market. Number 4 from Florence, what to do when I have a gap in employment? So this is actually where career storytelling is very important and where the career walking deck can be very helpful. I've actually worked with quite a few people who've had a similar issue where they didn't really know how to convey their value and their relevance after coming back from medical leave or parental leave or a layoff. And so this is where, number 1, I highly encourage you to continue building your experience, right? Go and volunteer, because that is going to be where you can start building experience that you can add to your resume. Other things you can do, start doing projects, because those projects are going to continue to give you exposure and also certifications, licenses, professional development, and courses. Those are a good use of time because you're learning and you're investing in your development, but then you never know. You might be able to network with the instructor or other students. And from there, you're able to meet like-minded people in a community that you want to be a part of. And that is also a good way to get your foot in the door and start networking with other people. Another thing you can think about is when you have a career gap, what was something that you learned from it and how can it help you in the future? That can be a little bit harder to touch on. So I would say it's pretty nuanced and you got to work with someone directly to talk through what is the story that you want to tell. But I would definitely search up the term career storytelling, which I believe is going to be a very critical skill to navigate this job market. Because a lot of people have this issue of how do I translate my experiences into value that resonates with the hiring manager so that they'll want to hire me, even if I don't necessarily fit their perfect profile. Question number 5, Fernando. So how did you become so good at speaking in public or presentations? What are your recommendations? So actually, I used to be terrified of public speaking, and I just forced myself to keep doing it. So I think practice really does help, and also collecting feedback. So that's why I have this feedback form up. It's because I think I probably have over 100 or 200 pieces of feedback, and I read all of it, and it gives me areas of improvement. And so each time I finish a presentation, I'll review the feedback, and I'll either be like, oh, I did that again, or okay, it looks like I improved. It wasn't necessarily a problem this time. And I kind of just keep reiterating. I actually summarized the 100 pieces of feedback into top 10 themes that you can work on. And so I published a blog on that in case you want to read it. And that could be a good starting point. And in general, I would say practice is also really important. So if you get a chance to run through your talk track or your slides before the real thing, that always helps. But oftentimes it's also knowing you shouldn't read off of your slides or read off of your script, but having confidence that you know the subject really well and you can kind of riff off of it. So those are some of the things. But I would say one of the best ways that I've improved my public speaking is just having a bunch of coffee chats, right? Like up until this point, I've had 500 coffee chats, and those are just opportunities for you to keep talking. And as you keep talking, you figure out this is where I stumble. This is where I get awkward. This is where I have a very fast pace or a low inflection. And from there, you kind of just get a little bit better and better each time at talking. And as you get more comfortable talking to one person, you start to become more comfortable talking to more than one person. Okay, Douglas. How can applicants effectively explain a non-linear career path? And how do you feel about adding nonprofit volunteering or interest in hobbies on resumes? So the first part, how can you effectively explain a non-linear career path? I would say focus on the transferable skills. So actually on LinkedIn, there is a compass or navigator tool that you can use where you map one role that you had to the next role you had, and it'll highlights what are your transferable skills. So I would recommend something like that as a starter, or you can kind of just search up different ways, like even using Copilot and saying, hey, here's a list of all of my skills and experiences. Here's the role that I want. What are the transferable skills that I can highlight in the resume that would resonate with the hiring manager? So that's one prompt you could use with Copilots. And oftentimes a non-linear career path is not a bad thing, because I think out of all the professionals I've met with, no one had a linear career path. Every person I've met has told me I've had a non-traditional career path. And so that tells me that it shouldn't be a hindrance to you in your career development. You just need to know how to convey the value of all your previous experience to the hiring manager. And so one of the ways to do that, again, it's with the Career Walking Deck. When I was a new grad, I was in a sales operations role, which was very data and analytics heavy. But I wanted to shift into storytelling and communications. And so I took a look at all the different things that I was doing that kind of resonated, like communication skills, like presenting business insights. That is a communication skill, right? Having to do data storytelling, that's a business skill. Writing the newsletter for my team, that is a communication skill. These were things that I picked out. I put them in my Career Walking Deck, and I positioned them to the hiring manager to show that, hey, I still have different experiences and I bring a different perspective that can then complement what you're doing on your team. Another example is I came from Microsoft Canada and I was trying to go to our headquarters. A lot of people told me that was going to be nearly impossible unless I had 5 or 10 years of experience. But for me, what I really wanted to emphasize was, hey, I have a lot of valuable perspective from being in the Canadian markets and having exposure to this subset of customers and partners. And I understand the rhythm of business differently than what you understand in the headquarters. And so I can bring my regional perspective to the headquarters and bridge the gap between the two strategies, right? So those are other ways that you can tell a story and kind of shift that non-linear perspective and actually show that it's a value add and it's an asset. I may not have all the traditional experience you're looking for, but your team already has those. Here's what I bring instead, and it's actually going to be a value add to you. All right. How do I feel about adding nonprofit volunteering or interest? I would say if your resume is very sparse and you don't have a lot of tangible experience, then those would be things you could add, like your volunteering and your extracurriculars. But I would say for the most part, you want to focus more on the most relevant experience, professional experience that's tied to the opportunity or the job posting. And the rest of those things should go in your career walking deck, right? Those are the things that are going to help you build that personal connection with the hiring manager once you're in the conversation. But before you even get to that conversation, you need to show them you deserve to be in the room. And that happens when you can prove that you have the skills and experiences that they're looking for. All right, Jaspreet, number 7. How important are Microsoft certifications compared to real world projects when applying for internships and jobs? This will be the last question we take because we're already at 8:30. I would say that it's always good to have certifications under your belt, but you need to make it mean something. You can't just list off a bunch of certifications, but not really have anything to show for it. So that's where I would encourage you to actually go and build a test environment, right? Go and actually build a mock-up or a project, something that you could then publish on GitHub or on your portfolio, and then you can actually demo it. If you go into an interview or a networking conversation, these are just ways for you to build more exposure of your work and your skills. And it'll actually prepare you when you're going into technical interviews as well, because you'll oftentimes be asked to do those kinds of things. So I would say it's always good to have and invest in your own learning and development, but you need something tangible to come out of it. And then you want to broadcast that work, right? If you've built something interesting, share it on LinkedIn, because that's an opportunity for your name to surface up in the algorithm, and then other people will get exposed to your work. And because you have more of that visibility, then people are going to pay more attention to you. And if you get submitted through the application system, they're going to recognize your name. And so it's really about putting yourself out there, because you can build the familiarity bias, and those are different things that will play in your favor. Okay. That was a lot of questions. I wish I could answer more, but you can always reach out to me. I have a lot of different things out there that I hope will help you even after today. So thank you so much for joining me, and make sure you check out the Career Cheat Sheet series. It's 3 parts on how to build a career walking deck. And of course, reach out at any time if you have any questions. Thank you so much, everybody.